Welcome in, crafting creatures. Today we're going to make a card with this creamy marbled card which I have pre-made. So this is creamy throughout and marbleized, and this is going to be our card base. There is the envelope, but we won't be using that, but that's cream too. The card measures 4 1/4 by approximately 6 inches, so this is what we're going to be using as our card base. Next we have 3 dies of foliage, just random leaves that I wanted to use. I didn't want to overdo the leaves, so 3 designs was more than enough, and just need quite a few of those cut out. Then our embossing folder. Now you don't have to use an embossing folder. I chose to, just to give a little bit of dimension. This is rather a detailed one, as you can see here. You can use pattern paper, completely different embossing, plain paper, whatever you choose, it's your card. Now I was going to use this particular card but realised it's far too dark. So in the end that went out and it was bye-bye. So there's my cutout foliage, which will be used later on, and it's all on pearlescent card. There's a slightly goldy one and a creamy coloured one. And then I use this particular card. You can just about see the embossing just there. I'm going to be using the colour on the top and a creamy centerpiece, I suppose, out platform. And you see the raised on the top, the coloured on the top, otherwise there's no point having it there at all, really. So anyway, so next we are going to have the centerpiece, mark it up so we know roughly where it's going, all done by eye, Captain. So that looks fine. Did the right size, thankfully. Put the foliage aside, and I need to work on this centerpiece first, which means Nellie's platform. So I'm going to make sure it's roughly where I want it. I am rubbish when it comes to doing by eye, but I do my best. So making sure it's all down so it doesn't get stuck to the stamp. And the stamp I'm going to be using is from this stamp set here. I'm going to be using the congratulations here at the top. So let's grab that. And I will say now is a good time to use an anti-static bag, pouch, just to give a rub over to what you're actually stamping to make sure that it only stamps what you want to stamp. Any other moisture, grease from your fingers, it will end up on there. So anti-static powder is a very good option here. So I'm going to be using the Distress Oxide gathered twigs. Now with Distress Oxide, it's not the best for stamping, so you've got to make sure there's plenty on there and give it a good press and hope it comes out okay. And yep, I'm happy with that. Nice and crisp. Jolly good. Make sure you also wipe off your stamp and your platform as soon as you can so as not to stain them. Next, acrylic block. Little bit of water, a paintbrush, and to start with, Distress Oxide pumice stone. I wanted something a little bit lighter than what I'm working on. and then also a little bit of the gathered twigs, because I'm going to do a very careful mix of both the colours, purely because the gathered twigs is a little too dark and the pumice stone is a little bit too light. So a little bit of water, mix the two together, and then going from the back of the centerpiece, when I get you back on camera, just going around the edge of that centerpiece. Now it won't really show up on camera, but it helps make that centerpiece just stand out that little bit more than it does. Just give it a little bit of definition. I'm so sorry this is not on camera, this bit. You can do this with a marker pen. You can also do it with the ink onto maybe a finger dauber. You don't have to do it at all. It's just a little bit of finesse. But if you go from the back, any mistake that might be made, like a little bit of excess ink maybe, will be on the back, not on the front of your work. Again, I'm so sorry this bit is not on camera. So as I said, you can't really see it, but you kind of can, I hope. It's so much better in real life, I promise you. It just helps it stand out a little bit better. Gives it that bit of definition. Okay, so the placement of this. Onto the base card, and that will be centered. As you can see, I do have a border right around the edge. I didn't want it right up against the edge of the card. I felt it needed a little border around it. Now I'm just nitpicking through the foliage and just putting it here and there randomly around that centre, just to see what goes best, what fits. I don't really want two together that is obvious. So at the moment I'm just filling in gaps, and then you'll see me adjusting it all as I go. Just eyeballing it. What goes where, what doesn't. Definitely need something at the bottom. There we go. Maybe something else just to the right. Options. Well, if I move that little bit, move it round a bit. If I put that in there instead, just move it slightly. Looks like a hot mess at the moment. I hope it doesn't look like that at the end. Yeah, okay, that does me. So I don't need them. Okay, so now a little bit of the fun begins. So I'm going to put some foam pads on the back of the centerpiece so that it gives the card a little bit of definition and just stands out that little bit. Of course you can lay this flat, especially if posting, if it helps, but I've chosen to actually make this one stand up. Make sure they're all on. Lovely. Okay, now let's attempt to sort out this circle wreath foliage thingamy bobbins. So there's a couple here that I'm not overly keen with, so maybe get the scissors out and give a couple just a little trim. Of course, this isn't a necessity, but I've only done a couple just to give a little bit of difference between the foliage. Do this last one and just make sure it's not quite a straight cut. There we go, it's better. Okay. Da, 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 da. Okay, let's do the messy bit. Okay, so for this I tend to do like a glob. It's the best way to describe it, and then I'll use my finger just to kind of spread it over. Oops, a little bit too much, Lisa, a little bit too much. So I'll just get my finger and I'll just dab it around. You don't want loads and loads of glue. The good thing is it does dry clear, but you still don't want globs. The good thing is the very centre of this is actually hidden by the centrepiece, which is good. So I've just whizzed through most of that. Everything is just about stuck down now, so time to close the glue and get the centrepiece stuck on. So taking off the backing of the foam pads, thank goodness it's very thin card paper, because even though it's bending slightly, I'm not creasing it, which is good, because when I get it sorted it will be flat. Now, little tip, back of foam pads, add a little bit of glue to each one, and then you can manipulate whatever you're putting down if you need to. It doesn't have to be done every time, and it's not for extra stick, it's purely so you can move around whatever it is that you're sticking down, because with foam pads, as soon as it's on, it is on. Not good. So at least I can eyeball this and get it in the best position. You can see a little bit more of the definition on there, I think, at the moment. Now, taking scissors, go to the back of the card and just snip off the excess. Now, sometimes I do this when this is actually on the base card, sometimes I do it before it's on the base card. For this particular card, I didn't want it going onto the border of the base, so snipping away the excess now. And then, yep, that's looking good to me. So time to glue it down, I think. So sometimes I use double-sided tape. This time I'm going to use clear glue, but first, da-da-da, little droplets. So I'm going to put one in each of the corners using this yellowy gold shimmer glue droplet. Really good thing with these is if you make a mistake, just wipe it off. As long as you're quick, just wipe it off. A couple more here. What was I saying? Let's try that again. Unfortunately, because of the exposure, you can't actually see those drops until they're on the page, so apologies for that. Okay, so that's more than enough, I think. Don't want to do overkill, but I want a couple. So make sure that dries. You need a good couple of hours for it to dry before you take your base card and put it on. But while I'm waiting for that to dry, going to the back of the card, I want my little mark. So I'm going to use the same ink that I have done for the rest of the card to keep with the theme. So it's the Gathered Twigs, inking it up well, because with oxide, like I said before, it's not brilliant. There we go, and there's my mark. Ta-da! Not everybody has their mark, but I like to make mine. And then after some time, we come back to it. We take the liquid glue, making sure there's sufficient on there. And again, it gives me a chance to wriggle it around to get it in what I think is the right position as well. Can manoeuvre it if I need to. So just eyeballing it to get it where I think is centre. And then that is card complete. Little bit of definition. Theme, colour, shimmer, and done.